everyone. Welcome to the new Caudell Lab studio. First I'd like to thank Kathleen O'Brien, who helped me with researching, creating, and editing the PowerPoint, and Carol Townsend, who started the Creativity, the Artists on the Road event. I'm going to start talking about a trip our students made to Ireland, and then I'm going to show some food based upon Irish ingredients. So Dublin is the city experience, study abroad program. There were 5 faculty and 22 students. It was a unique opportunity to learn about traditional foods in urban and rural areas across Ireland. Guinness is a descendant of an 18th century English porter style ale. There are those who don't understand how high quality some Irish food can be, so they think that Guinness is the more important ingredient in a meal, so the food accompanies the beverage. Guinness is one of the most famous drink brands in the world. A glass of Guinness, along with many hearty Irish dishes. Who's had an Irish dish? What was it? Calcannon, great one, great one. Guinness can be added to a recipe. You can steam mussels in Guinness, or it can be used in your Irish stew. Dining in the heart of Dublin, the cuisine. You notice a little creativity there. This is about creativity also, and they put the fish fry up on top. So the fries are in a cup, and then the fish is elevated for an interesting presentation. Beef and Guinness pie, probably the most popular Irish dish, classic. Here's an interesting tidbit about Ireland and Dublin, that the Shebeen, does anybody remember the Shebeen, the bar on Elmwood, or Delaware rather? It's an unlicensed drinking venue, but some of Dublin's licensed pubs have been legal since 1782. Here you see whiskey was an important factor in Irish life. What I really picked up on this slide is the flight. So landlord Oliver Hughes launched a whiskey flight menu, groups of 3 whiskeys, and that now is translated to many other kinds of products like beer and food. You can do all kinds of things. It's like the dessert plate with assorted desserts on it. So the flight concept. In Dublin, there were the Dublin Gardens. The Dublin Castle is a strong example of the unique traits of the Irish gardens with unique characteristics. The flat lawn outside, a circular wall was very interesting. We had a nice day there with the students. Scones, we all know scones. Scones are very simple, a quick bread, wheat, barley, oatmeal, baking powder. You know what I've noticed here in the States, we tend to make them sweet. They're more like a donut these days. They put sugar on them and things. So traditionally, they're a basic bread. Being of some Viking heritage, the Dubliner Museum was very interesting to me. Those are 3 of our students. So the Vikings occupied and mixed and mingled with the Irish. There was a lot of back and forth between Ireland, Scotland, Scandinavia. As a Viking, or as a Swede, I tried to get a better understanding of the Irish relationship with the Swedes, and it was very intermingled, and it was very interesting. So I learned a lot there. The levels of that building had several different levels, and one of them was archaeological. Throughout the Middle Ages, Ireland's population exploited the land of plenty. There's a story, a medieval tale about descriptions of sausages, blood puddings, which we had. Blood pudding was available at almost every breakfast. We've got a picture of it coming up. So there's Ireland, and you know, one of my themes today is that we always think of lamb and salmon and lamb, salmon, potatoes, right? Potatoes. Those are the ingredients I'm going to work with. Dinner includes, there's your steak and your Guinness pie. Breakfast, there's the black pudding. So that was offered at every breakfast, and I enjoyed it. There's, can you see it in the round pan? So there were two shades. One was darker than the other, a little more flavor in it. Black pudding, a type of blood sausage commonly eaten in Great Britain and Ireland, generally made from pork fat, beef suet, and a relatively high proportion of oatmeal. So fat. One of the things I tell my students in multicultural foods is you have to remember the people that were eating this were farmers. They had to work hard all day, so they'd load up, and then they have the energy to spend the day. And the groats and the oatmeal were good, right? This is a nice picture because of the presentation. So a lot of creativity is also involved in demonstrating or displaying foods. So that was at breakfast. You got bananas and raisins and grapes and walnuts. So the type of cooking in Ireland evolved from centuries of political change. I mentioned the Vikings, people coming and going, different cultures. Predominantly the cuisine is founded on the crops and animals in the temperate climate, which is what we have, temperate. The agriculture is now challenged with a legal obligation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is a beautiful thing. They are ahead of the curve, I would say, than some nations of the world. Also, their menus are required to have gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, all menus in all restaurants have that information. So that was impressive to me. I was glad to see it. The students here, that was Trim Castle, and we were told that that was used as for some of the scenes in Braveheart. Causey Farm was a really fun day. We went there with the students, and Irish dishes include, Irish stew can be made with lamb. Mutton, of course, is mature lamb or goat. And there's the advertisement. It was a huge, much like our industry, our country has changed to service and tourism. So this was something else we looked at. So the best Boyne Valley tourism experience. So they were a finalist in the competition, and we enjoyed it very much. Couldn't help it. That was fun. Founded on the crops and animals, and we mentioned the temperate climate. There are our students. Chef Don is in there, and all of our students that went on the trip. You'll see the picture of the soda bread there has Kathleen's name on it. They also had their own jams and jellies, so that lower picture was the jams and jellies. This was the first meal I had in Ireland, and because I love salmon three ways on the same plate. So you see a salmon cake, smoked salmon, and baked salmon, and I love it. And it was simple. So we're going to go from simple to upscale, from basic ingredients to a little more fancy and thoughtful. So here's another example of simple food. So chicken korma, the influence of other cultures. Roast beef with gravy, mashed and veg. Do you see that in many American restaurants? Oven-baked hake served with garlic, butter, mash, and vegetable. There's a fish fry with the fish up on top. That was another interesting presentation. And this was in an upscale place. I believe that was a puree of root vegetables. The salmon was seared on the top, and then they had sprayed it with basil. So that's that green look on the left side. Oh, this was at the Dublin Museum, and I really loved it because, have you ever heard of the trenchers? Trencher is something you can eat off. So you'll see that the pewter plate, there's the pewter plate, then there's the wooden plate, and then there's the slice of bread that they ate off. So it was the merchant and his family that ate off the pewter. That was expensive. The merchant's apprentice ate off the board in the middle, and that's where the expression "a good square meal" came from. And then the servants would eat off the bread, and then give the bread that had the drippings from the food would go to the poor people. So that was in the Dublin Museum. That really got my attention on our trip. There was a fine dining menu with roast scallops, truffled garden onions, and coral bisque, heirloom tomato, grilled a Gran Padano, rocket puree, and olive oil. So that's an example of upscale. And this was a picture of that same restaurant outside with their awards in 2016. So it's not all potatoes and salmon and lamb. They're right at the edge of modern creativity. This one really impressed me because what do you think is in that glass? Liver pate. Isn't that an interesting presentation? So you would dip it out and spread it on the crostini or the bread, and then there was a little sauce. I think it was a fruit au jus. There's another fish fry up on top of the dish. So that was an interesting presentation. So there's creativity in Campus House. That was a dessert plate we had with petit four and a quenelle of ice cream, a truffle, and then we used lots of colors. And there's Carol and I. Thanks for coming. Go Rabe, Maith, Agat, Architect. And thanks. Now I'm going to demonstrate the two examples of culinary creativity. So that's all edible. This can be presented with a dip. It's got endive and carrot, yellow squash, radishes, and I'm going to do a little demonstration because this was called a demonstration. So you'll be able to see it on the screen. Jamie, looking for my assistant. So in order to make the flour, this is a radish. I'm going to do it with a bell pepper. These are bell peppers. So you cut it like a lemon crown if you've ever done that. That, maybe 45 minutes. But I tend to multitask, so I was doing 3 other things at the same time. So that comes out looking like a flour, and then the skewer goes up through a scallion, and then you put the flour on the top. And so the radish, here's another pepper. And, hey, Jamie, I need scallions. Thanks. And our next dish is the potato. I could actually just undo one of these and show. So you just take the scallion. So that's the vase. That can be for a vegetable dip. And because somebody may be eating this one, I'll do the right thing. The gloves on.
I also wanted to mention that there was a Michelin star rated restaurant in Dublin also. And it was right down the street from the hotel. And Kathleen and I
Cutting edge culinary there.
So it's called Chapter 1 if you're ever there in Dublin. Chapter 1, we recommend it.
So the taste that you're all going to be able to try will be a bee potato, tiny potato. Jamie and I deep fried them. And then I'm going to fill them with herbed cream cheese. And what do you think the primary herb is in the cream cheese? Thyme is right. And I took my time making it. So here's how you make it. I got a bee potato, a melon baller, paring knife. So I'm going to cut the potato in half. If you want it to stand up straight, you take a slice off the bottom. Then it stands up straight.
Steve, it was just blanched or?
These are raw because they're going to be deep fried.
Oh, okay.
And we used, Jamie and I used 3 different kinds. I used a red bliss, a yellow potato, and a white potato. So you scoop that out with the melon baller. And then I have the herbed cream cheese, or boursin, if you just want to buy it. I made this with cream cheese and goat cheese. Thanks, Jamie. So then the potato was deep fried, got the herb cream cheese. You fill the potato with the cream cheese. And then we take a piece of salmon and roll it into hopefully it looks like a flower. We got better and better as we did it. So you want this to set this on the top. And then the pièce de résistance is the sprig of thyme in the very top. And that will be the bite you get to sample. And let me bring out the finished platter. If anybody has any questions, we have a microphone to the left of the kitchen. And this is what you might see passed at a country club or a wedding. So that's our hors d'oeuvre. So if you think about the classic Irish ingredients, got potato, goat cheese, salmon, and of course, thyme. Good food takes time.
That's lovely.
Questions?
Come on over here to the Yeah, I have a quick question. Cuisine seems to be emerging or evolving. What do you think is next in this process?
One of the things that I'm really excited about is, good question, is things like, we've always said, actually when Kathleen and I worked on the concept for Campus House, we said fresh local ingredients when possible. I mean, if you want certain foods, it might come from California certain times of the year, but when possible, you want fresh local ingredients. That trend has gone all the way to something being called hyper-local, which I love. And also things like greens, sprouts, microgreens. A lot of kitchens and restaurants and culinary schools are growing their own greens. And that means you can harvest them right before putting them on the dish. So it couldn't be fresher or more nutritious. And one of the things I most like about the microgreens is the intensity of the flavor, like radish greens. It's got just as much or more bite than the radish itself. So that's it. Those are trends that I'm really tuned into. Also, I know I mentioned in the Irish comments that they label their menu with the gluten-free and vegan, vegetarian, and we do that more and more at Campus House. If you don't give the customer what they want, they'll go where they can get it. So, the trends the trends out in the public and the trends in the restaurants often work together. You'll see chefs at the farmers markets, or they get that farm share where they get produce regularly from, a farmer that they have an association with. We recognized Tom Tower, a local farmer, as one of our hospitality ambassadors in our hospitality department. So I probably answered more than just the question there. Anything else? I'll be glad to answer questions about, yes, Mary Ruth.
I just had a question about the potato appetizer.
Yeah.
If you don't have a deep fryer, could you just bake the potatoes?
You could, yes. Yeah, you
would
could
you-
bake it. I would say the frying, you'll end up with more of a crispy outside. It could also be blanched. You could actually, boil. But yeah, I mean, the inclination with so many people is to fry everything. If you batter it and bread it and deep fry it, people will eat anything. That's another trend in culinary. Twinkies, bacon. They're actually deep frying butter now? What the heck? Can I get some fat with my fat? Yes.
I'll ask a question. Steve, because we've traveled together and with the students in several countries over a 5-year period, where would you rate the culinary quality or the trends in your book as far as your inspiration and your travel?
I love the northern Italy, Cuneo and Bologna. We made pasta from scratch, and we went to the place where they produced the prosciutto, and there was also the slow food movement, the idea that a meal is an experience. You enjoy the whole experience. I mean, there are not many drive-through fast food places around the world. We've got most of them in America because we're hurrying to get somewhere, so we're eating that sandwich in the car. But the slow food movement, getting things, going to the market, getting your foods, deciding what to eat based on what's available in the market. So that was the slow food movement, and we, with the students, met one of the founding chefs of the idea of slow food, and the one lovely woman chef signed my book to her best friend, me, and she was a slow food chef. So northern Italy, yep. I missed the France trip, which would have been a contender, I'm sure.
So what were the top 3 culinary lessons that our students learned based on what experiences?
From our travel?
From the Dublin trip, do you think?
Oh, the Dublin trip? Well, I'm going to go back to a very primary concept in travel, which is that it's transformational. I was fortunate enough to travel when I was in an English class, and I lived in London and traveled around, and our students often say that it's transformational. It like wakes them up to the world, and that's what the creativity and travel is all about also. I think they also liked the sense of understanding a little more geographical and historical perspective. You go to a castle that was in existence while America had our indigenous people. The Europeans hadn't gone to America, and these cathedrals and castles in Europe were so huge and impressive. So there's that historical perspective they get from the travel. Third one? Change?
The reputation of Ireland as being a culinary, Dublin, let's say, we wouldn't think of it as a culinary capital, but did that change at all?
Yes, absolutely. And that was in the slides. The truffled items and all the foods that have really, really grown and progressed. The Irish do think of themselves now as cutting edge culinary and staying with the trends. And I especially like the vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free. That shows that they're doing the right things. If there aren't any more questions, let's have a snack. Want some? Thanks for joining us today. See you next time.